Today, I want to talk to you about the effects of pornography and how for 14 years I was periodically using pornography and it almost destroyed our relationship on several occasions, and I had no idea that the pornography was actually linked to me wanting to destroy my marriage.
Yeah, and it's not even in the way you probably think. It destroyed our relationship because I found out he was looking at porn and got mad at him. That wasn't even it. It was actually destroying his brain in the same way that using drugs like heroin destroy a brain, and we had no idea.
Aloha, I'm Matt.
And I'm Ash, and we are the yoga couple.
We are internationally recognized holistic healers, authors of The Inner Work, and we're here to help you heal your inner child, face and transcend your shadows, and finally unlock a life of true freedom and lasting happiness.
On this channel, we guide you on how to heal yourself through methods like chakra rebalancing, science of mind, transpersonal psychology, and yoga philosophy.
Trust that you are divinely guided to this video.
You are exactly where you're supposed to be.
The answers are here now. Yeah, so the more I researched this and started looking into it, it came into the picture later in our relationship. I was actually just doing research on pornography just because I have a background in psychology. I was interested, and I started to realize that the side effects of pornography were all side effects I was having in my relationship. Things like being really irritable, having a problem with delayed gratification, becoming uninterested in one partner, just always seeking attention. The list goes on and on and on. And I started to realize, like, whoa, are these actually connected? And because I was using the pornography in private, I had to really sit back with this and be like, whoa, I'm not being honest here because I'm using this secretly, but I'm lashing out in ways, and she just thinks, man, what is going on with him? Why is he so unhappy? Like, we're fine. And it really was robbing my joy on a daily basis because essentially I didn't realize it, but my mind was constantly craving more and more of the chemical cocktail that gets released when you look at pornography. Pornography is an explosion of dopamine and a few other neurotransmitters like endorphins in the brain that are so unnatural that it is the same equivalent as taking a heroin or cocaine or morphine or some other opiate, where the brain is absolutely overwhelmed and overflooded with chemicals that it shouldn't be experiencing on a regular basis. So
what this would look like in our marriage and our relationship, which I wasn't aware of and neither was he, was that he was becoming really unhappy in his life, unhappy in our relationship, unhappy with his job. Everything in his life became a burden. And that's because when you are getting flooded with massive amounts of dopamine like you get from drug use, mundane living and just life in general becomes dull and boring because you're used to getting such an explosive high from drug use that it's really hard to function and cope. It's also really hard to function and cope when you're under stress and pressure because users of drugs go to whatever their vice is to alleviate that discomfort that they're feeling when they're in situations that test and challenge them. So he had a really avoidant strategy, and whenever there was challenges in our life, if he couldn't get his outlet, because I didn't know, he used porn. If he couldn't get his outlet and was, in a situation where he couldn't escape from it, he would lash out and become so overly explosive. It's like, where is this coming from? And he had all the signs of a drug addict, and because he didn't use drugs, he wasn't doing cocaine or heroin.
Think of it that way.
I would just never think are you using drugs? Is this what's wrong with you, right? I would just never assume that. And I think pornography has just become so accepted in our culture, especially because we've been shamed so much around our sexuality, that there is the pendulum swinging in the opposite direction. We just want to have acceptance around sexuality and all of these things. And that's healthy. We should have acceptance for our natural desires, but in the way that it's being used, in looking at an unrealistic amount of women, using technology and associating that with orgasms. There's so many unhealthy aspects that are happening that it's totally messing up the brain. And I just want to say, he started looking at porn when he was 14 years old, like before he had ever been in a serious relationship or experienced the longevity of challenges that come from a relationship. So he had this unrealistic perception of what a girl is for and what it should feel like and what it should be like to have sex, for one, and then also the purpose of being in a relationship, all skewed from this unrealistic perception he had from looking at porn since he was basically a child.
Yeah, and it's crazy what it was doing to my brain. And I think for me, the biggest thing that I'm noticing is that the research is showing that 9 out of 10 men are using pornography, and now 3 out of 10 women. And I just think that no one's really aware of what it is. I think we just think it's sex. I know I did. I just thought, hey man, it's like Ash was saying, like I just wanted to feel okay with my sexuality. I just wanted to not feel repressed. And it didn't really seem like it was a big deal. I didn't understand that, what I was actually dealing with was something just as addictive as heroin. And so, growing up, like I was taught the dangers of really hard drugs and that they can completely ruin your life and really drive you to deep addictions. Well, pornography is the exact same.
It's not talked about that way.
It's not talked about that way, though.
It was just saying, like, don't do it because, like, you should wait to have sex with your partner, not
yeah, or I was told
drug.
It was sinful or evil, but no one, like, broke down the science of, like, no, dude, you will F your brain up. Like, you are going to screw your brain up if you keep looking at pornography on a regular basis. And I didn't realize that, and man, am I dealing with the consequences now, because as Ash was pointing out, one of the biggest side effects that really annoy me, and I'm still in recovery of having to rewire, is your brain is malleable. And so what will happen is, after you expose it to repeated high amounts of a neurotransmitter, so let's say dopamine, dopamine is what makes us feel good. It's very euphoric, just like endorphins. They make you feel really good. Endorphins are literally a natural opiate, so that's like morphine, codeine, like these like drugs that make us feel really good and take away pain. So you can imagine our natural, really euphoric brain chemicals are getting released on such a big level that our brain then starts to down-regulate its ability to handle that much. So in other words, it desensitizes itself, so that now to feel as good as you did, you have to get twice as much of the chemicals. And so you can see then once you get twice as much for a little while, it does it again. And now you need to get 4 times as much as when you first started. And this is how addiction works, right? We all know this cycle of, like, maybe I just started out looking at porn for like 5 minutes and it was like, whoa, this is so cool. But then it needed to be like 10 minutes, it needed to be 20 minutes, it needed to be 30, and so on and so on. And it needed to get more extreme, it needed to get more curious, more fantasies. Like, you have to keep feeding the addiction. And eventually this can become so crazy that it consumes you. And that's really what it did to me in some regards. But more importantly is that down-regulation, how that really skewed and ruined my ability to be happy on a day-to-day basis. Because now normal reality wasn't releasing enough of the chemicals to make me feel good in life. And that's where it really started to frustrate me, because no one likes to feel enslaved. And what I had to really be honest with is that this thing had enslaved me, and it was no longer just some cute, fun, like sexy thing anymore. It was like, yo, this thing is enslaving you. And that I didn't sit well with me, and that's really what helped me. That was one of my biggest whys, is because personally that pushed me to be like, I have to change this because it is ruining my ability to handle my day-to-day life. And I didn't like that. I want to feel empowered. I want to feel free, like I have free will. And as soon as I realized that I was losing those things, it was time for a change.
Yeah, and also, like, just to feel satisfied in your relationship, because if you've had a pornography addiction or your partners have a pornography addiction, it's near impossible that the relationship is going to be satisfying in the long term.
Yeah.
It really needs to be healed, because it is hindering their literal brain makeup. It's like being married to a user of heroin. Like, it's going to be a challenge for the rest of your life, and it's not just going to be in the usage of them. Yeah. It's not even about like you feeling like, oh, they're cheating on me in a sense, or I'm not good enough for them. That's not what it is. Like, this is a legitimate drug addiction because of the amount of neurotransmitters that are getting released in looking at porn, and also the connection of having an orgasm and stimulation while you're looking at the porn and clicking. It does so much to the brain.
Yeah, there's so many layers. We're gonna have to make multiple videos on the effects and how to heal these things, because it really is just endless.
Yeah, so one of the things to be aware of if you're the partner is to just start to develop compassion for the fact that they probably started looking at this when they were in their youth and didn't know that they were going down the road of drug use.
Which is also when the brain is more susceptible and easily changed, malleable. It's even more malleable, so the effects kick in faster, which made me a very irritable teenager.
So instead of taking it personally, like what I could do, instead of taking it personally and being like, why am I not good enough for you? Why do you need to look at porn? Realizing, wow, this started like 12, 14 years ago, and this has nothing to do with me, and now you have the brain of an addict, and what we're really dealing with is a drug addiction. Yeah. So we actually created a course on this exact subject, which is something that I just feel like is not talked about a lot, and we get a lot of questions about it because we are so open about our journey with it. So if you have struggled with this addiction yourself, or your partner is, we definitely recommend clicking the link. We'll put it down in the description of this video, and checking out the Revealed and Healed course. It's specifically made for couples, but you don't have to be in a relationship.
Yeah, it's made for the partner or the person.
Yeah, to navigate healing this and rewiring the brain for an optimal life, and undoing the over dopamine addiction that has occurred.
Yeah, and I think the first step for someone who is using the pornography is to realize that it is a drug, to realize that you are not just playing with sexuality. This is not just sexuality. Sexuality and pornography are two very different things. And I think that's the first biggest step that I had to really delineate in my mind, because I could use, if I take the sexuality argument, I could rationalize it forever. And that was actually what I was doing, right? I was using that, like, my sexuality isn't wrong. And it's like, yeah, man, we know your sexuality isn't wrong, but pornography is a drug. So those are different. And I think that's the first step, is to realize the scientific effects you are having on your brain, and understand that you are actually playing with a drug, and that it's not to be used lightly. It's like very, very, very dangerous. Yeah. Just like you would tell a child, hey, like heroin can destroy your life, like amphetamines. Like, you think of all the hard drugs out there and how we're usually taught and we're educated on how dangerous they can be. In the same way, I think that's the first step.
This use of porn actually affects every aspect of your life, and is a detriment to your success, to you being able to complete long-term projects, to your overall quality of life and happiness, to have a lens of gratitude instead of being irritable and impatient. I mean, there is a list of things of what this does to you, and the amount that has to do with sexuality is like this, and the magnitude of like quality of life and brain power. The effects are just, it's a massive list, and all of that is on the link below. So please ask us questions. We really are passionate about talking about this, so
helping in any way we can.
We're an open book, and we really want to hear from you. Don't be shy. This topic needs to come out to the surface because it is such a huge epidemic. Like you said, 9 out of 10 men, 3 out of 10 women. That's a lot of people on the planet, and we want to open the conversation. So leave a comment, and please subscribe if you found this content helpful.
Namaste.
Namaste.